Agape is the highest form of love, not a feeling, not a mood, not even an instinct, but a willed commitment to the good of the other. And responsibility, in its deepest sense, is the capacity to respond faithfully to this commitment. The two are inseparable. Agape without responsibility is sentimentality. Responsibility without agape becomes duty without heart. But when united, agape and responsibility form the foundation of moral maturity, social harmony, and spiritual depth. The meaning of agape. Agape is love without conditions, without demands, without the expectation of return. It is love that gives not because the other is deserving, but because the one who loves chooses to give. Rooted in divine charity, agape is God's love poured out into human hearts, enabling us to love others in a way that transcends self-interest. In Greek, agapao means to prefer or to choose, implying that agape is a decision, not a reaction. This makes agape a deeply moral love. It is not swayed by emotion or reciprocity, but anchored in the will to the good. The core of responsibility. Responsibility comes from the Latin respondere, meaning to answer or to promise back. Responsibility is our response to the presence of the other. It is the soul's answer to the reality of human need. To love with agape means to accept the burden of another's existence. It does not mean to erase them in our image or to take over their agency. Rather, it is to be faithful in our response, to be present, attentive, honest, and compassionate. Responsibility is not rescuing, it is standing firm in the presence of the beloved and refusing to abandon them, even when love demands sacrifice. John Paul II, Love as Responsibility. In Love and Responsibility, Pope John Paul II writes that, the greater the feeling of responsibility for the person, the more true love there is. This love is not about romantic intoxication. It is about willing the good of the other and remaining responsible to that good, even when it costs something. For John Paul II, love is not authentic unless it assumes responsibility. This love requires self-mastery, maturity, and spiritual strength. It requires the lover to be free from enslavement to emotions and impulses. Freedom is not the liberty to do as one pleases, but the power to do what one ought, especially when love demands courage. Agape as a call to moral maturity. Agape does not flatter us. It holds us accountable. When we say I love you in the sense of agape, we are saying I will remain faithful to your dignity, your soul, your journey, even when it is inconvenient for me. This kind of love is rare because it asks us to grow up. It is not romantic or flashy. It is steady, often hidden, and frequently thankless. It is the nurse who cleans wounds no one sees, the father who works 2 jobs and never complains, the teacher who stays after hours, the priest who prays through the night, the mother who wakes to feed a crying child without ever expecting applause. These are all icons of agape. They are responsible not just to others, but for others. Responsibility in a culture of escape. In today's culture, responsibility is often seen as a burden to avoid. Many prefer the temporary, the transactional, the emotionally low investment lifestyle. But agape contradicts this. It invites us to risk love without escape routes. It asks us to enter into the brokenness of others, not to fix it, but to remain with them in it. A responsible heart does not ghost people when they are struggling. It does not pull away when things become inconvenient. Agape resists the urge to flee. It is faithful even when it would be easier to quit. The parable of the Good Samaritan. In Luke 10:25-37, Jesus tells the parable of the Good Samaritan, which is a model of agape and responsibility in action. The priest and Levite walk by the wounded man, likely justifying their inaction with religious or societal expectations. But the Samaritan, a social outcast, stops. He bandages the man, puts him on his own donkey, and brings him to safety. He promises to return and pay any remaining costs. This is not pity. This is responsibility born of love. He sees the wounded man as my neighbor, as someone to whom he is morally and spiritually bound. Saints and agape responsibility. Saint Maximilian Kolbe took responsibility for a stranger in Auschwitz by volunteering to die in his place. He lived the highest form of agape, laying down his life for another. Saint Joseph showed silent, steady responsibility, protecting Mary and Jesus, providing, guiding, and obeying God's call without complaint or recognition. Saint Louise de Marillac, co-founder of the Daughters of Charity, devoted her life to caring for the sick and poor with tireless responsibility grounded in deep, selfless love. Psychological insight, attachment, and responsibility. From a psychological perspective, securely attached individuals are more likely to act with agape-like responsibility. They are able to remain emotionally regulated, to tolerate discomfort, and to prioritize another's needs without collapsing. On the contrary, avoidant or anxious attachment styles may distort responsibility, either avoiding it completely or taking it on in unhealthy, enmeshed ways. Agape love asks us to transcend our instincts and regulate our own nervous system so that we can stay present for others. This is not always intuitive. It takes conscious effort. It may mean showing up when our trauma says run, or listening when our ego says speak. Responsibility requires boundaries. Agape is not enabling. It is not over-functioning for others or collapsing your life to save someone. True agape protects the other person's dignity and autonomy. It says, I am here and I will help you carry this, but I will not carry you against your will. Saint Teresa of Calcutta often said, love to be real must hurt. But she also knew the difference between redemptive suffering and pathological martyrdom. Responsible love is discerning. It knows when to give and when to step back so that the other can grow. Responsibility to God and vocation. We are also responsible to God. We are stewards of our time, our talents, our bodies, and our relationships. When we love others with agape, we reflect God's own nature. Our vocation, whether as teacher, parent, friend, or leader, is the arena in which responsibility plays out. We are called not only to fulfill our roles, but to sanctify them through love. A doctor takes responsibility for the healing of the body, but also must do so with compassion. A judge dispenses justice, but must temper it with mercy. A friend answers texts, shows up, and listens, even when it's inconvenient. Each of us carries the weight of another soul in some way. Agape makes that weight holy. Agape responsibility in relationships. In intimate relationships, agape and responsibility mean being faithful when your partner is struggling, not manipulating or withdrawing love to punish, taking responsibility for your own wounds, triggers, and communication, asking, what does this person need right now? Not what do I feel like giving? Marriage vows, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, are the epitome of agape responsibility. They say, I will not run, I will not quit, I will not abandon you when it's hard. A love that rebuilds the world. The world is starving for responsible love, for fathers who stay, for leaders who serve, for friends who show up, for people who refuse to use, discard, or ghost others. Agape is not loud, it rarely trends, but it rebuilds broken lives, one moment of faithfulness at a time. When we live with agape and responsibility, we begin to look like Christ, who bore the sins of the world, remained faithful unto death, and entrusted us with the Spirit to do the same. He loved not because we deserved it, but because love is who He is. That kind of love transforms the soul and the world.